You're ready for your dose of reality. Everyone, welcome to another episode of the Dr. Quack Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Quack.
And I'm the important one, Mr. Mayhem. It's that time of the year. It's Vince McMahon, best of greatest hits.
That's right. We're going to be talking about Vince McMahon here. It's some good shit. But seriously, we wanted to take a little sidetrack here from the pay-per-views on this episode. Vincent Kennedy McMahon. We're going to be talking about some of his greatest matches.
I will say, Vince McMahon, or Mr. McMahon, let's be correct. Mr. McMahon, the heel character, was one of the greatest people out there. And he understood the spectacle when it came to professional wrestling. If you're looking for, as Jim Ross would say, or Gorilla Monsoon would say, somebody who knows the difference between a wrist lock and a wristwatch, you're not going to get that here. But you're going to get a spectacle, a showcase, and a soap opera all tied into one.
Remember, Vince McMahon was not always like this. He was actually starting as a commentator in the late 70s in the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. And then, moving on, of course, in the 80s in the WWF. But it took, Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin to finally break out the Vince McMahon character. And don't forget Shawn Michaels, all during that 97 era.
Yep, the Montreal Screwjob, which we covered from Survivor Series, was the first time Vince McMahon showed his heelish personality on screen. It wasn't meant to become a character, but it became the hottest character, just like you never know. Somebody holds up Austin 316 signs the next day, and we have Stone Cold Steve Austin, multiple-time world champion. So you never know what's going to catch. And Vince McMahon tapped into lightning in a bottle for about 12 years.
Yeah. We're going to cover 6 of his matches here. And the first one here was on Monday Night Raw in 1998. Vince McMahon taking on Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah, April 13th, 1998 from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And the build-up to this was Vince was trying to screw over Stone Cold, trying to screw him over. And Vince finally got the notion in that Stone Cold said he could beat him with one arm tied behind his back. And that's what we got.
My favorite part of this was the lead up to this match. When you're sitting there watching Pat Patterson telling Vince McMahon how to stop the Stone Cold Storm. You see the kick, make sure you hook his leg and cuff it underneath.
Yeah, this is only about a month after WrestleMania 14 when Stone Cold won the title for the first time. So this is his first main opponent. And yeah, it was Sergeant Slaughter was in there as the commissioner. Patterson and Briscoe were the butt kissers.
Yes, Mr. McMahon.
The Stooges. And you're right, this was a great build-up. But the rating of this match is incomplete. This match actually never happened.
Well, technically, there was a bell. There was a bell when they started the move. But then Dude Love, of all people, started to make his very first appearance, right? This was his first appearance?
It wasn't his first, but it was because he had already won I think they'd already won the tag titles.
Yeah, they did.
But this is the first time Dude Love ever sided with Vince McMahon. And he kept saying that he couldn't support Stone Cold Steve Austin beating up the owner of the company. And that's why he came down there and started the shades of interspersing Dude Love and Mankind and Mick Foley because Dude Love didn't use the mandible claw, but he did here.
Yeah, that was a great sell. He's over here on top of McMahon trying to put that mandible claw in there, and then Austin's got one arm just trying to reach for him, and yeah, he got nailed.
Yeah, he did. And then if you followed on, they showed the extras of this on the Peacock Network that was aired after the show went off air because Kane came down to the ring, the New Age Outlaws came down to, or not, it was DX, it wasn't just the Outlaws, it was all the DX. Kane came down, The Undertaker came down, everybody was
Legion of Doom.
Yeah, Legion of Doom. There was a big, huge fight off. Owen Hart. All kinds of things were going on in this. So there was a big mess going on at the end. That I found more interesting, even though the buildup of this unmatch was great. I cared more about all the stuff that happened afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, the match, yeah, you could say it kind of happened, didn't. It was no contest, but yeah, I mean, overall, I love this. This was one of the things that, yeah, you had to make sure, because this was during Nitro and Raw. You know, more people were watching this than they were whatever was on Nitro, and I can't tell you what was on there.
98 was when they finally started losing. The 83-0 turned into 83-1. So this is right around that time.
Yeah, definitely. Moving along here, Vince McMahon taking on Ric Flair at the Royal Rumble 2002.
Yeah, the street fight.
Yes.
Which at this time, and I'll say this, and I'm sure you're going to agree, I've done hardcore matches, street fight matches. I know you have as well. When you get to the age of Ric Flair and Vince McMahon, who are both in their 50s in 2002, street fights and those kind of things are actually easier on the body. There's less bumps involved. There's less impact on the body. So I understand why they build it as a street fight. And because it was easier on them and it was easier to manage and control. Less thinking needed to be done. And this match was actually a lot of fun. It was very spectacle, as we said. All of these matches are basically spectacle. Vince McMahon is not a great wrestler. You could tell Ric Flair managed this thing down to the minutes, because this is probably the best technical match Vince McMahon had. The great crowd noise on this one. This was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot watching Vince McMahon.
Come on, Rick. Here, let's take a picture.
Yeah, with Reed, his son Reed, who died. That's not Ashley. That is not Charlotte Flair out there with him. That's his other with Jessica, I think.
Yes,
is her name.
I believe that is.
But yeah, so that wasn't Charlotte. That was the other daughter. He has 4 children, and I like the figure 4 ending with that, with Vince McMahon having to tap out to the figure 4 leg lock. I really enjoyed it. With very Ric Flair, is it he's like Greg Valentine. He gets his ass whooped for 10 minutes and then wakes up and realizes he's in a match, but it worked.
The favorite part for me about all these matches that are on pay-per-view is the montages. Right there, just letting you know what happened. When Vince dressed up as Ric Flair and was imitating him, I remember watching that live. That was just phenomenal. I couldn't believe he did that. Yep. And Flair came out there. It was great stuff on that. But the match, itself, it was really great. I loved it. It was a 3.5-star match for me. I mean, like you said, one of his more technical matches, and Flair definitely controlled that.
I went 3 stars, and the backstory on this, as he was talking about that they did in the package, is that Ric Flair became 50% owner of the WWE, WWF. It was the F at this time still, because Shane and Stephanie had sold out to Ric Flair, and the two of them couldn't work together, so that was the story they were trying to put over, and it was a great story.
And if you're ever trying to figure out indie wrestlers or pro wrestlers here up the upper level how to bleed, watch Vince McMahon. Nobody bleeds like McMahon.
Not even Ric Flair.
Not even Ric Flair. Moving along here, we had Vince McMahon against Zach Gowen over here at Vengeance 2003.
Yeah, this took place in Denver. Now, for those of you that were not familiar with Zach Gowen still wrestles today. This is in 2003. Zach Gowen was a one-legged wrestler. He lost his leg at the age of 8 due to cancer. They had to amputate it, and his dream was to wrestle. He's only about 150 pounds because, he doesn't have the extra 70 pounds of a leg. And he actually got hired by the WWF to come in and do some stuff. He still wrestles today. He wrestles with a guy named Gregory Iron, even though the team is not together anymore. Gregory Iron has cerebral palsy. He's also a professional wrestler, and they're the Handicapped Heroes. Check them out on the East Coast. We've done some shows with them. They're great guys. They're very humble. They love just being in the business, and they're all thankful to Vince McMahon for giving him an opportunity.
Yeah, and this is what's wild about this match versus his other ones. There was no street fight, no disqualification. This was actually just a match. And it was amazing to see Vince work and be able to even sell what Zach Gowen was doing with the one-legged drop kicks and the Acai moonsault.
Yeah, Vince, unfortunately, because he's not a great worker, this was the lowest ranking match of the ones that he assigned to us to watch at 2.25 stars. But it was still good. They still put in the drama that you need there. There's still the roller coaster. So I'm going to go over this kayfabe word of the day, psychology. Psychology in the wrestling world is the story, how you tell that story, and does it make sense? If you hit somebody with a pile driver and then put on a leg lock, that doesn't make sense in the story, so that would be bad psychology. And taking the crowd up and down the roller coaster through that match is an example of what you're doing in psychology or telling the story. Kayfabe word of the day, psychology. This match, while it wasn't technically good, this was one of the better psychological matches because the crowd bought this match 100%.
They did it. And I went 2.5 on it. I thought that Zach Gowen did a great job out there. I love the fact that he hits his missed the moonsault at the end, and Vince just rolled over and pretty much covered him and was like, I'm done with this.
Yeah. And this was when Vince McMahon was at his uber heelish best. I mean, we're going to talk about that coming up. Vince McMahon truly earned the asshole chance that he would get from this period of wrestling history.
Yes. Moving along here, we had Vince McMahon and Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 19.
Yeah, this took place in Seattle. This was, if Hulk Hogan loses, he would retire. Now, he had just signed the Legends contract like a month before, and then they put over that Vince McMahon started Hulkamania. No, Hulk Hogan started Hulkamania. So that was what they were feuding over. And this became a street fight because at the contract signing, Vince McMahon busted open Hogan and signed it for Hogan in Hogan's own blood. That was great storytelling. Some of the better Hulk Hogan stuff because he's always not been a great actor.
No, he hasn't. I enjoyed this match. I mean, the best part for me was that Rowdy Piper came out in the middle of this match, and a lot of the boys did not know about it.
Yep, because he truly sat in the crowd. Now, we did get another sighting, Sylvain Grenier. Yay. He, at this point, was no longer wrestling. He was refereeing for SmackDown. Now, he technically was still a wrestler. He wrestled on the house shows. But he played referee on SmackDown. He cost Hulk Hogan a victory. So he tried to come down after which, by the way, 3 of these matches, Brian Hebner was the referee. So I guess Brian Hebner was the personal referee for Vince McMahon.
That makes sense.
So they got rid of Brian Hebner, and here comes Sylvain Grenier. Well, they got rid of Sylvain Grenier. Thanks, Roddy Piper. You did exactly what you were supposed to do. And he really played it up. And then he decks Hulk Hogan. These two guys bled. It was a great match. A lot of, again, good storytelling. But the storytelling here was 80s, 90s, and 2000s. You could see the progression as the match changed styles from the 80s. Now, at first, I didn't get why they did the Greco-Roman knuckle lock in the beginning, later on in the beginning part of the match, because it made no sense in the street fight until you watch where they went next, and you could see the 90s. You could see the Legends area build into the Attitude Era, and then as they switched to the Ruthless Aggression, you could see it changing, so it made sense when you watch the whole thing. So it's one of those things, again, don't poo-poo a part that you don't like. Watch and see where it goes in and see if it makes sense at the end. And this one did. I went 3.5. I really dug a Hulk Hogan match.
Yeah, I went 3.5 with it. I thought this match was great just overall. And the only thing I did not like was that long ramp at WrestleMania 19. How far do you have to get to the ring?
Well, that was Safeco Field, which is a huge baseball stadium. The thing I liked at the end was Vince McMahon had the audacity as he's laying there bleeding, got hit by a pipe, still had enough temerity to flip off Hulk Hogan.
That explains, look, that's why they put Piper in the crowd, because they learned from Papa Shango not to run down such a long ramp.
Yes.
So moving along, Vince McMahon and Stephanie McMahon, the first ever and only father-daughter I Quit match.
Yeah, this was No Mercy 03.
In Baltimore.
And as we said, these are all spectacle matches. This one was not Brian Hebner, it was Nick Patrick, but Linda threw in the towel to end the match. Yes, we're going to say Vince McMahon won right off the top, but the buildup of this, a lot of people give Stephanie a hard time for not being a great actor, not being a great worker, being a spoiled brat. We got none of that. We got good acting. We got Good bumps from Stephanie. Great work. The crowd was so hot into this match. Linda even looked halfway credible and believable out there. The one eyesore out there, Sable, I mean, she's fun to look at, and then she does anything more than move, and you're like, nope, I'm done watching. But this was a really, really good match. I think Dexter Season 4, for those of you who are Dexter fans, Arthur Mitchell, where he beat up his family and terrorized and tortured his family, I think they watched this match in this build-up time of 2003 to invent the character Arthur Mitchell, because Vince McMahon and Arthur Mitchell, they abused and tortured their family to no end, and the crowd always prayed that Vince got his comeuppance.
Yeah, I mean, just so much, McMahon, that the montages there with him and his daughter, they're trying to portray Daddy's little girl. How are you going to hurt Daddy's little girl? That was just so, made you want to watch this match. The fact that Stephanie got the lead pipe and was beating him with it, and when she came off the top and hit him, I was like, all right, we might actually get her to win. But no, Vince wins by choking her out with a lead pipe. And I wasn't going to give a two-finger salute, but for that, you're getting a two-finger salute, Vince McMahon, because how do you choke your daughter out for a lead pipe? Who comes up with a father-daughter I Quit match? Only Vince McMahon.
Actually, it would have been Paul Heyman, who was truly the lead writer for SmackDown.
Well, yeah, okay. But why did Vince agree to this? I'll tell you, because he cares about putting asses in the seats.
Yes, he does. And so does Stephanie, and so does Shane, and so does Linda.
Yeah, it's hard to give a two-finger salute for a Vince McMahon match, but that one's going to get it right there.
I thought you were going to give it to Linda because you don't like towels being thrown in.
Yeah, I don't like that either, but we're not going to go there. We're going to move forward. This one actually gets my Quack Attack, because this match here was one of my favorite Vince McMahon matches of all time. This was at Survivor Series 2003, where he took on The Undertaker in a Buried Alive match. I have never seen Vince McMahon take an ass whooping like he did in this match. He bled everywhere. He got beat the hell up. Undertaker really he took care of him, but God, did it look beautiful.
Yeah, I've done a couple of matches like this. Now, I've never done a Buried Alive match, but the story that they were trying to tell, I had one match. I was the heavyweight champ, and I did not get a single offensive move and won the match because of the story of everybody wanted to see Vince McMahon get his ass kicked. He came down there. He prayed in the corner. He said he went back to the higher power of, it was me, Austin! Well, now he's not on the same side as The Undertaker. He's opposite side of Undertaker. And Undertaker did. He whooped his ass. Vince got a low blow and 2 punches, and that was it. That was his offense.
And he still won the match, thanks to Kane.
We also did this during WrestleMania 9 when we talked about Crush and Doink the Clown. Doink the Clown got his ass whooped 2/3 of that match and still won. You don't have to get your stuff in to have a great match and still come out on top because they told the story. The crowd loved it. It set up The Undertaker and Kane being enemies again. It gave Undertaker a break because he took off after this for a while, needed some time off. It sold everything it needed to sell, and the crowd was hot.
Yeah, this one for me got the highest ranking of all these matches. It got 4.25 stars. I felt like this was something I could watch again and still be enjoying it.
Unfortunately, I only went 2 3/4 on this one, and I went to that from the standpoint of when you watch all of these of the Vince McMahon matches, this one's kind of meh when you're watching Vince McMahon matches back to back to back to back to back. On the pay-per-view, this probably, I would have went 3.5 because when you look at all the other matches on the pay-per-view, this would have been a hot match. But when you watch all these other Vince McMahon matches together, this one's kind of meh. So that's why I went 2 3/4.
Well, you see a difference of opinion there. But overall, Vince McMahon was definitely a pioneer in the wrestling business from start to finish from the late 70s until 2022 when he officially resigned. He's still majority owner of the company, but he will never be on TV again. And frankly, I am sad over that.
I am too, because even in 2017, 2018, 2019, you hear that no chance, that's what you got. The crowd woke up. The crowd's like, whoa, Vince is here. Something big's about to happen. And we've lost that now. So it is sad to say that Vince will never appear on television again. hopefully Triple H can figure out somebody to do that for him, because unfortunately he isn't that person. He's still a big deal. Triple H is still a big deal. Hopefully Triple H finds that new holy cow moment.
Yeah, well, that's our show. And speaking of holy cow, our next episode here.
I'm going to do it Purge style.
See you next time.